Hello, I'm Shieldwall100 and welcome to Gotham's Tricorner Docs for another Batman Miniatures Game 3rd Edition game report. Today we are having a confrontation between two crews, a Joker crew led by the man himself and the Soldiers of Fortune led by Bane. Check out the description below, there's a small promotional code there from Top Hatted Hamster Games in case anyone wants to pick up some miniatures or scenery or something. I'm not affiliated with them, but otherwise let's get on and have a look at the crews. Okay, starting with the Joker's crew. First on the list of course is the titular leader of that gang. Yes, I'm using the Back to Gotham version of the character. I really love the model and his gigantic ludicrous base with the whole apparatus on it. I really like him. There's no reason you can't take any of the other Jokers, but this one comes with very similar rules, although he does have a whole bunch of buffs and debuffs I have to try to remember this time. Yes, he's got the standard Joker's gun and a poison knife. He ties in nicely with a lot of the objective cards, and yeah, he's quite reasonable at 92 rep. Right, moving on. For the sidekick, I'm taking Gaggy. I think he's Gaggy Gaggleson from the comics, if that's his full name. Yeah, he's the second sidekick you can take really for this gang. Most people take Harley Quinn or think of Harley Quinn. This is a guy who comes with the Clown's Party bat box, and I've used him before and I really like him. He's quite different. He's just as mobile as Harley, if not more, because his strange pogo stick poison Joker gas cannon thing actually ignores terrain when he moves as a substitute for her acrobatic, but he, instead of just being more blunt force trauma like she is with her usual versions, whichever version of the mallet she's using, he has a poison and enervating dispensing gas that emanates every time he moves, ties into a lot of his attacks. Yes, I think he's quite interesting to use, and I'm looking forward to using him today. Carrying on, we have a free agent. This is the Suicide Squad version of Killer Croc. He's a bit of a beatstick, he's quite tough as well. He's not as powerful as the comic book versions of this character that Night Models produces, not by any means. He won't be going up against Bane with any chances of success. But yeah, he's quite powerful nonetheless, relatively reasonably priced, and yeah, he's good fun to use. I like to use him. He's amphibious, which can take people by surprise. Okay, moving on to henchmen. Staying with the Suicide Squad theme, I'm taking one of the cosplayers from Jared Leto's Joker crew. This one is Stan the Eyeball Man with his assault carbine. Quite interesting. He's very powerful at short range, not so at long range because he lacks the necessary depth perception. Carrying on with the gun theme, a more standard clown from the Bat Box. This is Rasta Clown, I believe, and he has the custom rifle, which I say this in every game I think now, but he's possibly got the most powerful gun in the game. does three blood damage per landing hit, and that means with multiple shots, he can really chuck out the damage. The only problem is that they've mounted this amazing gun on possibly one of the worst statted models in the game, which isn't a rat swarm. But heck, you got to balance it somehow, I suppose. And yeah, he's too good to ignore, so he can soak up attention from elsewhere in the crew and on the board. Whiteface is next, a really nice model which I like taking. I think he's based upon the Joker's design from the Injustice Gods Among Us video games, and he's quite an interesting all-rounder, pretty cheap but comes with a reasonable short-range gun. He also has the Cruel ability, which is like a slightly upgraded version of Arrest that the police team seem to have. The only reason it's upgraded is that Arrest seems to have ways around it and to avoid it affecting people. No one seems to be able to avoid the Cruel rule, so anyone who's unconscious around him had better look out. Carrying on, we have the Ace of Spades Clown. He's a bit of a wild card. I like him because he does the Joker gas rule, which means for a special action he can explode a bubble of Joker gas around him, which gives everyone nearby poison and enervating, much like Gaggy. That's a really powerful rule, and I've used it to immense effect versus other crews in the past, where he's just given a whole bunch of models status effects, which again ties in really nicely with the Joker's objective deck. And yeah, another model is just difficult to ignore. And finally, with the Back to Gotham box, I've taken the chainsaw wielding thug. I think he's thug number 3. Yep, another model who isn't very impressively, statted in terms of his attack, defense, his willpower and endurance. Are all pretty unremarkable, if not just rubbish. But yeah, that chainsaw is a weapon that you just can't ignore running towards you. If you do, you can really, really regret it. Yeah. So that concludes the Joker crew. Let's move on to the Soldiers of Fortune. And looking at these Soldiers of Fortune, you'll see here they are being led, as I said before, by Bane, the rebirth version of Bane, the currently sold version of Bane, shall we say. He is a monstrous leader to have in your crew. He has a bunch of abilities which make him a good leader, a good strategic planner, etc., and he is quite obviously a brutal monster in close combat as well. There aren't many models in the game that can go have a round of combat against him, especially if he's on Venom, and have much expectation of being conscious at the end of it. He's got 3 options to pick from when you take him in your crew, one of which makes him even more of a close combat monster, which in my opinion's been a little bit overkill, to be perfectly honest. There's one which gives you even more planning abilities and crew leading, but I'm taking the option which gives him 3 additional Venom doses and the ability for him to dispense it out to any of his friendly models within 4 inches. I think that's a good one to tie into the objective deck that the Soldiers of Fortune have. They get plenty of bonuses for using Venom. A lot of the models benefit from using Venom as well in the crew. It's a good ability. It's a good ability to capitalize on, because a lot of the henchmen go from being a little bit better than most other henchmen to being actually very, very solid, and it just means that their henchmen can be much more assured in their ability to take down their opponents in many of the circumstances they find themselves in. Okay, moving on. I used her before in a previous game report on my channel, and I see no reason to continue doing so. The Infiltrator, there's not much I said about her in the previous game that I haven't said, which I couldn't repeat now. She's very useful in most areas of the board apart from close combat, and even if she's caught in close combat, she's got good defensive stats as well. She's interesting to use against Joker because her hacking ability says it affects all markers, including exploding teeth and stinky fish and all sorts of things, so she can really mess around with the Joker's plans as well. Another mainstay of my Soldiers of Fortune lists is the Elite Op here. He's got his solid assault rifle again, and his armor and his stoic pose. I usually take him. He's just good to have in the crew. It's quite survivable and quite well balanced. Okay, next up is Militia, who I haven't used on the game before, but she in a game on the channel before, sorry. But I find she works better alongside Bane than with any of the other leaders. I think to me, Militia is a good definition of what I'd call a bully model, as in when she's taking on opponents of her own power level or weaker, so lesser henchmen or lesser free agents, shall we say. It just seems quite unfair, because especially when she's roided up on Venom, she just seems to be able to pile on lots of attacks that they can't really block, and they do lots of damage. And when the enemy tries to hit her back, she's got good armor, which reduces the attack dice, and if she's benefiting from Venom in Rage, the damage it does get through is severely clipped, shall we say, and she can just seem to soak up loads and loads of punishment. But you balance that against the fact you get overconfident with her, and you try to take her up against, you try to weigh her in against a Batman or even a Nightwing, or a solid assassin model like Lady Shiva or whatever, and her stats just really then do come up short, even with Venom on. And she seems, that can lead to some people thinking she's a bit of a disappointment, but if you use her for what she's good at, she won't let you down. And add into that the fact that she's got her super jump. If you give her audacity and a special action, she's very mobile as well. I'm hoping to be able to use her with lots of Venom doses from her Venom Factory Bane over there. Okay, moving on. Making an appearance from the Arkham Knight's militia. He's still also in the Soldiers of Faction. The Soldiers of Fortune faction, may I say, is one of the Scarecrow's. Is one of Scarecrow's militia soldier 1, I believe he is. His stats are very basic, but nonetheless he's also a veteran, so he fits in nicely with the crew. And he has an assault carbine, which means he can move around and still lay out the damage, especially against some of Joker's weaker, less defense-mind-oriented henchmen, shall we say. He'll be able to, put them out of their misery quite quickly, and he's also quite cheap. Nice. Looking forward to seeing how he does in a big boys gang. And finally, we have, just bring him into focus, Cuchillo. He's one of the earlier Bane henchmen from a previous incarnation of this crew, I think. I can't remember if he's in the current box, but he's certainly in the current edition. He's basically a fast guy, shall we say, who doesn't carry a particularly ferocious weapon. He's only got the knife, but he's a veteran. He has sneak attack. He can pull off some interesting bits and pieces. He's stealthy, so he can't be seen from further than 8 inches away, and it gives him a good chance to score objectives, as opposed to laying out huge amounts of damage, which other parts of the crew are more than capable of doing. So that concludes the 2 crews. Let's move on to deployment and see how things go down. On to deployment, and this time I drew the Plunder Deployment Zones card. As you can see there, it's 2 corners to 2 corners, so both sides have to take a lump out of the middle of their board edge out of what they can actually put their models on. The slight extra novelty for this one is that both crews get to place a pair of suspect markers on the board, which I'll cover when I get there. Those suspect markers have to be at least 8 inches away from their deployment zone, so they have to be quite deep into the playing area, but it just gives them something a little bit extra to work with. So, staying with the Bane crew, I will show you where they all are. Over here in this corner of the docks here, you've got Bane himself, Militia 1, both behind the crate. Peeking round, we've got Cuchillo and Militia just there, ready to break forward. They're all more or less in darkness at this point anyway, because they're way too far away from any light sources, so they're probably quite safe back there. On the far side, just with fire support on the only raised area available in this deployment zone, is the elite operative. He just fit on the distribution house within the bounds, so to speak. And finally, the infiltrate op, that's her name. She has the hidden rule, so she can deploy anywhere out of line of sight of all enemies, and she has chosen to zip forward in front there, in front of the crates, out of sight of all the Joker crew, I believe. Yes. And yes, the 2 suspect markers for the Soldiers of Fortune, as you can see, there's one next to her there. The other one, if I just retreat out and then come back in again, you can see it's just here. These don't have to be out of line of sight or anything, but they're best placed behind cover sometimes to prevent the enemy from getting at them. Okay, moving on to Joker. They mostly had to deploy on the boat because of the way the deployment zone is. 6 inches onto the board actually just about takes them up to the siding there. Just about, that's 6 inches on. We're actually playing with the edge of the board today from this bit here. So yeah, that's again handy for the Versatiles gaming terrain tiles, that they're actually such round numbers when it comes to measurements. But as you can see, we've got Gaggy, Stan the Eyeball Man, and what's his name? Ace of Spades. That's it, Ace of Spades. All over here in this part of the board. Over the other side is the majority of the rest of the clowns. We've got Joker, as you can see there, on his obvious base. The Chainsaw Thug, Clown, Thug, whatever. Rasta Clown on top, in a fairly raised position, and Whiteface just there. Now Killer Croc has a bit of an unusual deployment rule in that he can, if he wants to, he can deploy in contact with any sewer marker, and that is what he's doing. He's just moving a little bit further forwards. He's going to be deploying there, and he can use sewers without having to manipulate them as well. So he can be quite mobile at the beginning of the game. The Joker's suspect markers for the placing of, they placed one in front of the crane and one over here on the far side of the board. Again, too far away from light sources to be visible to anyone sneaking up on it. But yeah, we'll see whether this, we'll see where this game goes from here. On to turn 1. Having amalgamated the first two parts of the first turn, I can say that there were no objective cards played during the first turn, and as you can see, the initiative rolls firmly, it came up a 6 for both sides. Bane actually gives his side a +1 to that, so he has won the initiative for this turn. And moving on to the raise the plan phase, I'll show you who has been granted audacity for this turn. On the Soldiers of Fortune side, as you can see, the Elite Op has got one. I'm kind of around the wrong side of the board for this, so I'm just going to travel to where you can see better. And as you can see, Bane himself has got one. Always give the leader audacity if you can. Cuchillo and Militia have all got audacity on the Soldiers of Fortune side. Moving over to the Joker's team, if you can just make out there in the shadow, Gaggy has got one, as has Killer Croc next to the sewer marker. The remaining 2 audacity tokens don't need to be assigned to models because one of Joker's themed rules, so to speak, is that he can dish out his audacity counters as the turn goes. Kind of gives him a bit more ability to adapt to the emerging scenario. Okay, let's see how the activations go in the third phase. Kicking off the game with a bang, the Soldiers of Fortune activated Elite Op, who had audacity. From the back of the distribution house, he drew a bead with his night vision goggles, which I may have forgotten to mention he's taken as the only item of purchasable war gear in this entire game on either side. Therefore, the limit of 12 inches line of sight for the night rule no longer applies to him, and he could draw a nice clear line of sight all the way across the board to Rasta Clown over here, who, as you may be able to notice, drawing that bead, well, Hyla bullets followed and did not go well for Rasta Clown, and he took a heavy avalanche of damage, which sadly kills Rasta Clown for the first action of the game. And returning to Elite Operative, he then had audacity, so he moved to the edge of the warehouse, and that concluded his activation. 1-0 to the Soldiers of Fortune, and yes, but no cards to play to cash in on that. Right, moving on. Joker Crew's first activation, they selected Whiteface the Clown to activate first. He was standing over by the dock. He wasn't granted an audacity token. He did become inspired though by Joker's close proximity, so what he did was to use that inspiration to use his first manipulate to place a suspect marker just there. And as you can see, he's turned it into a poisoned fish with the "it doesn't look fresh" card. He he places a suspect marker, and much like the cop snitch in the last game, For the purpose of this turn, it becomes a poison fish, as you can see there. If it remains on the board to the end of the turn, it will score, and 2 points for the Joker's crew if it's still there. If someone does have the audacity to remove it, they get poisoned for their troubles as well. So yes, that's interesting. And then after that, Whiteface moved over to here, just into the cover of the crates, and yes, that concludes Joker's activation for now. Soldiers of Fortune used a pass, so activation passed it right away again to the Joker's crew. They activated Stan the Eyeball Man, who had to suffer impaired movement to jump across from the boat onto the land, got him behind this piece of cover where his turn has ended. He wasn't granted audacity. Okay, on back to the Soldiers of Fortune. Staying on this side of the board, Cuchillo activated for the Soldiers of Fortune. He did have audacity, if you recall. What he did was to play from the hand the... Ooh, may I just get it up? The Black Ops card. As a resource, a friendly suspect may be treated as a sewer by friendly models during this activation. That tied in nicely with this suspect marker played in the deployment phase down here. He activated from over here with audacity. He jumped over the fence, manipulated this sewer marker to end up over here. Okay, so that's that's got a good bit of mobility forward for him and a good use of that card. We'll see what plans they have in store as the turn continues. Next up, the Joker activated for his side. He pinched one of the 2 remaining audacity tokens for himself, as is his wont and his right. He decided, first of all, while he was on the boat, he decided he'd use his special action to order this chainsaw thug 3 to kill them, giving the chainsaw thug +2 attack counters to be used next time he makes an attack. So that's a powerful move. If this thug gets in, makes him much more of a threat not to be ignored. Joker then moved and placed an audacity. He placed a suspect token there, as you can just about see there, and that concludes his move for the turn. Next up, Bane activated for the Soldiers of Fortune, and he played as the resource function of the card, search and destroy. As you can see, 1 resource. After a friendly model uses a Venom dose, it gains a +4 movement counter. What he did was he activated back here with audacity. He immediately dispensed 1 Venom dose to Militia for later in the turn, and he used another one upon himself, which he used to give himself the +4 movement counter, and he whizzed over here, stomping down the middle of the board. Now that all the shooters have gone, I think, on the Joker side, obviously he can afford to be a bit more brave. Having completed his movement, he didn't have anything else to do, so well, actually no, he is going to place a suspect marker. Just give me a second to pick them up. Oh, sorry about that, big pardon. And he's going to pop it down just here. There we are. And yes, that concludes his turn. And yes, threats are looming for the Joker side. On the Joker's side, Gaggy, the sidekick, activated. He had audacity. This is going to be an interesting one to explain. He used his special action to engage his his gas-powered pogo stick, and leapt all the way from the boat over to here in contact with this Joker suspect marker, which was already there. By doing so, any models that he lands within 3 inches of, in this case Bane, take enervating 1 and the poison counter. You see the 2 counters nearest to Bane there. Those are the ones that is. The enervating counter just basically means that the next time Bane has a chance to use effort, his effort limit is reduced by 1. Having done that, having used his movement and special actions, Gaggy then attacked Bane in close combat using the pogo stick, because when he engages it, he can then attack from 3 inches away instead of the normal distance. So yes, why not after all? Gaggy, knowing that Bane had lower effort limit, Bane efforted twice, couldn't effort the maximum of 3 times due to the enervating effect. Gaggy, knowing this, then efforted himself 3 times to throw as many more dice on as he possibly can, Bane having reduced his pool already. The dice rolls were made, and 3 hits got through. Each successful hit from this pogo stick causes 1 blood damage, so as you can see, Bane takes 3 blood damage after all is said and done. Quite an interesting activation there. Right, let's see what happens next. Back to the Soldiers of Fortune. They activated Militia. She started all the way back here with her audacity. She moved up to where you see the audacity counter is now. Then used her special action to use her super jump, and she ended up over here. She does have the Venom activated on her, so she's got Venom Enrage at the moment in case she did come into contact with any damage this turn, but so far nothing looks like it's going to be coming her way, but never mind, Bane has plenty more where that came from. Okay, back to the Joker crew. On the Joker's side, the Ace of Spades clown activated. He hopped across from the boat onto the shoreline, and he threw one of his Joker gas grenades into Cuchillo, who he could see. The actual the detonation of the grenade covered both Cuchillo and Militia, hit both of them, and as you can see, the damage done is poison 1 and enervating 1, which I explained a little bit before, but poison is now on at least, well, about half of Bane's models now, and that poison train has indeed started. Choo-choo, and it's very difficult to get it slowed down once it's going as well. So okay, back to Bane. Okay, and Scarecrow Militia 1, or shall I say Bane's Militia Man 1 for the Soldiers of Fortune was up next. He didn't have audacity, so all he could really do was hop around the corner, and that's it really. He's moving himself into position for the next turn. Oh, I did forget to mention, actually, before, with the Ace of Spades, he took the last Joker Audacity. That's how he was able to move across and still throw his grenade. Just thought I'd mention that. Okay, thank you very much. And on to Joker. He activated Fug 3, the one with the machine gun, the one with the chainsaw, sorry. It's like a hand-to-hand machine gun, I suppose. He did not have audacity, but he was inspired by Joker's presence, much like Whiteface was before. He moved forward, and he placed a suspect marker, which he immediately played Bite the Dust on. Lots of writing. We'll really briefly go through that with you in just a second. What happens is he placed a suspect marker. It turns into a set of moving, exploding false teeth. The number 1 on the die on the counter itself basically means it's a dice roll. I rolled a 1. That means after 1 further model activation, these teeth will explode. At the end of each activation, they move d6 towards the model that just activated. It's as simple as that. Once the counter reaches 0, the teeth explode. Anything under the explosive template generated by the teeth will take some damage, and that means if anyone does take damage, friend or foe, the card scores. Obviously rolling a 1 means that this is what we call a short fuse set of exploding teeth. So yes, it's probably been done to try and smoke the infiltrate op out of cover there, because teeth coming towards you are dangerous. And so finally, for the Soldiers of Fortune, the Infiltrate operative activated. She did not have audacity, but she has heard the song with the words clowns to the left of me and jokers to the right. And she didn't fancy an encore, so she beat it out of there quite quickly. She's quite fast. She's movement 10. She hops over. She's hopped around these panels here, and with her radio enables her to be inspired by Bane even if she doesn't start her turn within 8 inches of him. She used that just to place a suspect marker down here for a little bit of fun. It might tie in with some later objectives for the Soldiers of Fortune crew nonetheless. She couldn't shoot anyway, and she could not use her special because she did not have audacity. Okay, and right, so actually let's do this live because I forgot to do it earlier. The Joker's teeth need to move before they explode, and they move d6 towards her. They are moving, oh, I don't know if you can just see the 1 pip there, quite bright, one inch towards her, so that'll be 1 inch along the wall, and then they'll explode. I won't even bother moving it. What I will do is grab the, oh boy, sorry about that, grab the explosive template, which is clearly quite large. It would be about there, which would actually damage the rather silly clown who just let them up, who just set them up and let them off. He did not wind those teeth well enough, so those teeth will explode, do some damage to him. 1 blood damage, not enough to kill him or anything, but yes, certainly sufficient to score. Bite the dust before the end of the turn. That's 2 victory points. Joker's on the scoreboard. First card to actually physically score. Okay, right, so that concludes the activation for Infiltrate Op, and let's move on to the last activation of the turn. And to round off the turn's activations, Killer Croc activated for the Joker's side. He can use sewers without actually having to spend a manipulate action. He did have audacity anyway, but yes, he travelled through the sewers to this one over here, next to, in this part of the board, over from underneath the crane over there. He cannot move further, even he can't do that. Not this version of Killer Croc anyway, having done so, but he can, he still had his manipulate action, so he used that to place down a suspect marker just there. And that concludes all the model's activations for the turn. No more cards were played. It's time to go on to the cleanup phase and to see if any cards are played at the end of the turn and any effects that may take effect, such as poison. After the cleanup phase of turn 1, every model that took stun damage reduced that damage by 1, so Gag is down to 2 and Bane is down to 1, I believe. What else? Oh yes, poison tests. Models have to roll a 3 dice, pick the 2 that they like the most, result against their endurance. So for example, this roll here, with the 2, the 4 and the 3 would actually be a 5. That's what Bane rolled for his poison, which wasn't enough to inflict a point of damage upon him. Any model that exceeds their endurance after choosing the 2 dice they want, minus the level of the poison they're at, so 1 in all these cases, takes a point of blood damage. Unfortunately, over at the back there, you can see Cuchillo and Militia. They both failed their endurance rolls and they both took a point of blood. So that's the slow ebb way of their life is starting right now. In terms of scoring cards, this stinky fish down here is still on the board and hasn't been taken away, so it doesn't look fresh. Scores for 2 points for the Joker crew. On Bane's side, back to Cuchillo and Militia over there, they would have used this to score Ground War, played in the 4th phase. You can see have at least 2 friendly models within 4 inches of the same scenery element placed within or up to 8 inches of the opponent's deployment zone. Well, that crate there is within 8 inches of the Joker deployment zone, so this Ground War card scores for 3 points. So yes, only the 1 card scored though for Soldiers of Fortune, so a slow start for them. Let's see what happens in the next turn. Right, into turn 2, and an awful lot's happened to recount for the first 2 phases of that turn. Starting off with the take the lead phase 1. First of all, Joker used his scheming ability to move a suspect marker over from next to Militia and Cuchillo. We moved it 4 inches further closer towards him directly. And then they played cards from both sides. Joker played his signature card from his hand, Showtime. A lot of text there. I will summarise it. Basically, he rolls a die, which came up 5. That becomes a D3 plus 2 score, which, funnily enough, a 5 translates into 5 as a D3 plus 2 as well, which meant that 5 Soldiers of Fortune suspect markers within 8 inches of him, which actually equated to all 4 on the board, actually ended up in base contact with him. Okay, he becomes the centre of attention, I think, is what that represents, as he performs an act or something, runs off a series of jokes, who knows. The counter on that suspect marker there is a 5. What happens is the Soldiers of Fortune have to make him not be in base contact with those models by the end of that countdown. That countdown occurs at the end of each subsequent model, every model's activation this turn. If that reaches 0, he scores showtime and scores the 3 points in the top corner there. So get the attention away from Joker, or get Joker away from the attention, shall we say. In answer to this, the Soldiers of Fortune played from their deck Domination, played in the first turn, scores at the very end of the turn. They place an event marker next to an enemy model. If I come round, I can show you. They placed it over here next to Stan the Eyeball Man. Yep, there we are. This counter can be moved around. We saw it in the first game with Deathstroke, but I'll just summarise it quickly. At the end of the turn, whichever side has more models next to this counter will count as winning, shall we say, that particular card. If Soldiers of Fortune win, they score 3 points. If the Joker manages to prevent that, then the card doesn't score at all. So it's just basically it's a handy one to have, just to make sure that the enemy has to focus in one part of the board to prevent scores. Okay, I think that was the entirety of the first phase. Oh no, it wasn't. I'll just come back over again, just to show the actual initiative roll. It's over here, as you can see. Oh no, it's not. Hang on. What it actually was 6-6 again. Picked that dice up and rolled it again for the Showtime card. Sorry. So again, same as last turn. Both sides rolled a 6, but Bane adds 1 to that die roll, so his side has initiative for this turn. Right, moving on to the raise the plan phase. Yes, both it's time to work out who has audacity. On the Joker's side, it was nice and simple. It was Gaggy over there again, and Killer Croc. The remaining 2 audacity tokens waiting to be shared out as the turn progresses. On the Soldiers of Fortune side, for Bane, we have the Infiltrate op, Bane of course again, and over on the far side, you may have noticed earlier, Militia and Cuchillo both have audacity tokens too. So on the Soldiers of Fortune side, it's just the Militia guy and the already in position elite operative who don't have one. Okay, right, let's see what happens when models start moving. Well, as you can see from the focus of the camera, the elite operative went first for the Soldiers of Fortune. Figured that the easiest way to deal with the Showtime card that Joker just played would be to remove Joker from the board altogether, and to hell with the suspect markers. But yes, so with his night vision he can see anywhere across the board, and he can draw line of sight to Joker from where he is. Over there. Unfortunately, Joker did count as being in cover, but it just removed the strength die from the equation. Still enough dice to worry him, especially since each successful hit would do 3 blood each, and Joker is not by any means indestructible. He had 3 shots, needing force to hit, and unfortunately he whiffed in spectacular fashion. I'll just show you the die roll down there. Like I said, needing force to hit, not a single one. So every single round that flew out of that gun ended up pinging off the cover probably, or just splashing into the water or the boat next to behind Joker. Funny, the same amount of luck in the other direction would actually have caused 3 hits and killed Joker if he'd had 3 hits instead of 3 misses, but them's the breaks sometimes. That does not have Elite Op does not have audacity. Maybe that's why he's in a bit of a sulk, so he didn't put his 100% in, but that does actually conclude his activation, and sadly that is him out of ammunition as well. Okay, over to Joker's team. Forgot to mention, during that Elite Operative's activation, he did actually play a card as an objective from his hand. Cyber Attack for the Soldiers of Fortune. I'll just see if I can get it a bit more into focus. That looks about right. But to summarise, what happens is he targets 2 of the Joker's suspect markers, one here and one over here, rolls a d3 plus 2. Another 5 came up, so that's another... another 5 rounds. That's the counter draws. That counter counts down, shall I say? At the end of each subsequent model's activation. If either of these 2 markers are still on the board after the countdown reaches 0, the cyber attack scores for 2 points, and so there's another one ticking on the clock. On the Joker's side, the Ace of Spades clown activated. What he did simply was to move a little bit closer to Cuchillo and Militia and activate his Joker's Gas special ability. He used up one of the Joker's 2 Audacity tokens to do so. What that basically does is he... all models within 4 inches of line of sight of him, which is both of these 2 on the Soldiers of Fortune side here, take Enervating 1 and the Poison effect. What that means is they were already affected by both of those things, hadn't actually worn off yet. The poison never wears off incidentally, it's a status effect that continues on unless a special rule gets rid of it. So these 2 models go from Poison 1 to Poison 2 and Enervating 1 to Enervating 2. Yes, this is what I like to do with Ace of Spades, just put him in the middle of a bunch of enemy henchmen and just let them have it. If he goes down, it's only a henchman. But in doing this, he then scored from the Joker crew's hand, I'm feeling weird. For 2 points, simple as stuff, inflict an effect on an enemy model. Well, he did it from 2, so that certainly scores. Over to Bane's crew. Right, onto the Soldiers of Fortune and the Infiltrate Operative activated. A busy turn for this young lady. She first of all placed a suspect marker, and with doing so, she played Invasion, whereby place a suspect within 4 inches of a senior within 4 inches of an enemy model. Well, she's placing it within 4 inches of this here crate, which is within 4 inches of Killer Croc, so that certainly qualifies. In so doing, she rolled a dice and put a numerical counter with a 3 on it. This numerical counter, like all the others on the board so far, counts down at the end of each subsequent model's activation. If this reaches 0 before the Joker crew manages to get rid of it, she scores the invasion for 2 points. Okay, that's the easy part. She then decided to move over to where the Joker is, and she revealed the suspect marker of the Soldiers of Fortune own side, which was on this side of her, in the gap between them, shall I say. And she then used her special ability. Oh, she had Audacity, of course, by the way. This is why this has all been possible. She used Audacity to then hack 2 of the remaining Soldiers of Fortune suspect markers in contact with Joker. Remember, he's using them to fuel the Showtime victory card, objective card. She hacked one of them over here and one of them over here. So she's managed to scatter 3 of the 4 suspect markers away from him, which who knows if that's going to affect. There's only 2 more activations left after hers. Okay, move back to the Joker crew now. And Gaggy Gaggleson activated for Joker next. What he did was first, he was over here next to Bane, not a good place to stay in. I was a bit nervous for him about over there up until this point. First of all, he revealed the suspect marker of his own side, which he landed next to last turn, and played Valuable Commodities from the Joker crew's hand. A lot of text again, I will summarise it. It's worth 3 victory points though, to bear in mind. That suspect marker he revealed is actually replaced by loot, which you can see next to him there, the little pile of coins and bills in the bag. He carries that around with him now for the remainder of the game, or until he's incapacitated somehow. If it's still in the Joker crew's possession come the end of turn 4, that's this card will score for 3 points. If not, then there's no score at all. The Soldiers of Fortune have to take it off his cold, prise it out of his cold, dead or unconscious fingers. He then decided to activate his, he had Audacity, so used his special to activate his pogo stick, that's the word I was thinking for again, and bounced over here to where you can see him now. In landing, he was within 3 inches of the militia member, and so inflicted poison 1 and enervating 1, as you can see, and that concluded his turn. He could not attack because he'd already used his manipulate action for the turn, and can't attack and manipulate in the same turn. That concludes Gaggy's go. Over to the Soldiers of Fortune to see what they want to do. Back to the Soldiers of Fortune, and they activated Militia, very much cognizant of the objective cards that have been played so far this turn, and in reacting to try and prevent some of the ones the Joker had been playing. Militia activated, she took her Venom dose, and upon doing so used the resource part of Search and Destroy, again same as in last turn, to gain +4 movement. It was used on Bane last turn, it's been used on her this time. With the Audacity, she could engage her super jump as well to move all the way from that part of the board to the centre back of the board here next to Joker. She then used her manipulate action to remove the last suspect marker in contact with Joker, and that would mean that he can no longer score his Showtime card, which he played earlier. That means that, yes, I mean, it's an awful lot of effort expended by the team just to prevent that card, but it is 3 points, which can make all the difference. You've got to keep your eye on the ball in this game. Can't just go for slamming people's heads into walls and floors and things, but you've got to stop them from scoring their objectives. But yes, she had to burn through her Venom. Two models moved out of position, possibly, just to prevent, and a lot of effort just to disrupt their own suspect markers on the Soldiers of Fortune side. I don't know if it was worth it for 3 victory points, but we'll see at the end of the game probably. And yes, that did also move her away from the important domination marker, but who knows what's gonna happen next. Okay, moving on to Joker's crew's side. I also forgot to mention, in all the fun and excitement, that at the beginning of Militia's turn she was actually within 8 inches of Bane, just about scraping in. Bane has the Call Under Firewall, which means when a friendly model within 8 inches of him activates, they can remove 1 effect from their stat card, which interestingly in this case, the Poison 2 that she was suffering counts as an effect, so she chose wisely to remove that rather than just take constant damage over the course of the game. She could also have removed the Enervating 2, but the poison is actually damaging, whereas the Enervating will disappear next time she has to make a die roll. So she wisely chose to get rid of that one. And yes, so there's one way of getting rid of poison, I suppose. I never thought of it like that. Don't need antidotes, just need Bane watching over you and glowering at you occasionally. Okay, moving on now. Back to the Soldiers of Fortune now, and Cuchillo activated with Audacity from behind this crate. He sprinted around into contact with Stan the Eyeball Man and attacked him using a sneak attack. He started out of sight from the Eyeball Man, so what that means is Stan could not use efforts in defense. The Cuchillo's own effort limit was reduced by 2 due to the enervating effect from all the giggling he's doing from the Joker's gas, but nonetheless he efforted once, which he was allowed, the one time he was allowed to do, to put that extra die in. When all was said and done, he managed to get 2 hits through, including the strength die, onto the Eyeball Man, and he's fairly weenie knife, as I said when we picked crews. Only managed to do 1 blood each for each hit, so there they are. And but what more importantly that does do is it actually means that Stan has to move in order to be able to shoot his gun, which will affect its abilities despite it being an assault weapon. Just going to come round the board quickly, because at the end of Cuchillo's activation a whole bunch of things happen. First of all, the cyber attack on these 2 Joker objectives is counted down to nothing, which scores, where is it? Here it is. The cyber attack card for the Soldiers of Fortune for 2 points. And also the invasion over here will be counting down to 0, meaning that the invasion card also has scored for 2 points for Bane's crew. So nice double whammy there at the end of Cuchillo's activation. Let's see if Joker can do anything about that. He's been spoiled on his own show, so he'll probably be looking to even the score somehow now. Joker himself activated and decided that he would steal the last of the audacity tokens for his side. He then ordered, with his special action, the chainsaw clown again to kill them. That stacks up 3 attack counters. Can't have more than 3 on a model on this guy, and he's now looking kind of very scary. He's hyped up to the max. Having done that, Joker then pulled out his gun and decided to shoot at the infiltrator op. Only managed to get 1 hit because her defense is naturally 5, so it was a good go. The strength die got her because that was a firearm. It's done on 2s. Unfortunately, neither of the other 2 dice came up trumps for him, so only the 1 hit. 1 more hit would have killed her, I think, but 1 hit, it's 3 damage, -1 on her effort limit forever. That's not too bad, but is it enough? Okay, in the top of your screen there you can see the militia member. He has activated for the Soldiers of Fortune crew, and he has no audacity, so he just stayed put and he let rip on Gaggy Gagson there, and as you can see, did 5 blood damage, 5 successful hits from his carbine, each doing one blood each. Gaggy thought he had cover there from the railings, but unfortunately for him, the militia member one has the shooter rule, which within 8 inches, which definitely qualifies now, that the cover is ignored. So yes, the strength die was added in there and did another point of damage, and yes, all of a sudden that loot counter is not looking as safe as it was a moment ago. Teach you right to poison members of the Bane crew. Stan the Eyeball Man briefly activated without audacity. He just chose to manipulate the domination marker here just to move it a bit further away in between him and Ace of Spades. Cuchillo still counts, but just in case Bane over here had anything that gave him a movement boost or anything at all, he could use. There's now 2 Joker crew members within 4 inches of it, so just to probably help that not to definitely score. Okay. The Soldiers of Fortune crew opted to pass, allowing the Joker crew to activate the thug with chainsaw. He moved around the corner. He doesn't have audacity, but he was inspired by Joker, so that enabled him to place this suspect marker, and in turn place let them in on the joke for 2 victory points. What the conditions are, he has the Trickster trait because he's a henchman in the Joker crew, so 1 model with the Trickster trait plays suspect marker within 4 inches of an enemy model. Both sides then discard a card from their hand, which is what I shall do in just a moment. In reaction to this though, the Bane player, me, the Bane crew, shall I say, played Ozito from Bane, which actually then replaces the suspect marker. I won't go through this entire wall of text, but what it does is it replaces this suspect marker here with an Ozito marker instead. I'm not sure exactly on the timing. It's a little bit vague as to which marker, which card happens first, etc., etc. But this is how I'm doing it. So I mean, this is how I would do it. You know, just to let both players, but let both sides have their card, shall I say? So the Joker's 1 scores, and this marker with a little teddy bear on it that I sculpted myself out of green stuff. You're welcome. Is now there instead. This acts a little bit like the loot counter on Gaggy over here. At the end of the game, if the Bane side has this marker, the little teddy bear, then they score 3 points. It can be picked up by anyone. The clown actually could decide to pick it up right now because he's in base contact with it. He won't because it's dangerous. Whilst an enemy model has that marker, the Bane himself will get a bonus movement and bonus attacks nearby in combat against someone else who's carrying it. So it's a dangerous little thing to carry around. Just keep him away, maybe. Would be a good idea for now. Sort it out in future turns. That's Chainsaw Guy's motto for the time being. But yes, 3 victory points in the bag for Bane's crew if they manage to pick that marker up by the end of the game. Okay, Bane himself activated for the Soldiers of Fortune's last activation of the turn. He then used one of his Venom doses. He still has 3 remaining after that. Immediately played as a resource the Search and Destroy card, which gives him a speed bonus boost of 4 inches for the turn. We've seen that quite a few times. They just seem to keep coming out of the deck, and he used that to stomp all the way over here, which was just enough to get in contact with the Ozito marker, but no further. Couldn't get into face punching range of Chainsaw Dude over here, but it was sufficient for him to be able to pick it up, so he's carrying the teddy bear of 3 victory points in this. He then, that was a free action. He still had audacity, so he actually used his manipulate action, couldn't hit anyone, so he put down a suspect marker and played, as we saw earlier, invasion, where he needs to roll a die. If this suspect marker at the end of the countdown, after each subsequent model's activation, if this countdown reaches 0, that's 2 victory points to Bane's crew. It's in the middle of the board, surrounded by the thing. I'm just banking on the Joker's crew having more things to do than they've got time with, but it might force them to waste an activation as well. So we'll see how that goes. Over to the Joker crew for the last activation of the turn. Filling out the Joker crew's turn, Killer Croc activated. He jumped from over here with audacity and revealed the invasion marker that Bane had just put down at the very end in the last activation, just to prevent that from scoring. He's in base-to-base contact with Bane, but cannot attack this turn because he used his manipulate, but it puts him in base contact for next turn. It gives both sides something to think about. And somewhere down the line, I must have forgotten to activate Whiteface here. He was just over behind these crates, so obviously that's my excuse. Just to say, he's no audacity left for the Joker crew. He ran around the corner and has finished up here. He was too far away to count as inspired as well. Okay, that concludes the crew activations, and I shall move on to the cleanup phase to see what happens, who gets poisoned, if any cards play or score. Right, after the cleanup phase of turn 4, I have this to report. Starting off with the poison effect, shall we? Cuchillo, over here. You can just see him behind Stan. Succumbed a bit more to the poison, taking another point of blood damage. Bane continued to resist, and surprisingly, the Arkham Knight's militia model here, he also managed to not succumb to the poison as well. He rolled pretty well. Let's see what else. Oh yes, of course, a handful of stun damage came off. Bane's now clean of stun damage, but he's still got the 3 blood from earlier. What else? Oh yes, cards played. Soldiers of Fortune played Ground War from their hand. Again, as you can see, in the 4th phase, they have 2 models within 4 inches of the same piece of scenery, which is nearby to Joker's deployment zone. There are many to choose from, pieces of terrain as well as models, so they definitely score this for 3 points. No cards played by the Joker crew, I do not believe, so I think we're moving on to the next turn. And of course, I did forget to mention the domination marker, which was over in the top corner over there. It was there. Did not score. There were 2 clowns and only Cuchillo contesting it for the Soldiers of Fortune, so that one did not score. Maybe it will come up in the next turn. Okay, the take the lead phase for turn 3 started off with Joker playing Let's Dance from his hand, a card played in the first phase of the turn. It scores at the very end if a friendly model with the leader, sidekick or free agent rank takes any damage. So given the scrum that's going on around here, it's going to be difficult for that not to happen unless the Soldiers of Fortune really want to clip their own wings in that respect. In response, the Bane crew played Domination again. They did have it. Same as before, they placed the event marker. This time they chose to place it in the middle of the scrum next to Killer Croc. And yes, so that means they'll be trying to win this said scrum. Let's see how that goes for them and remerge with more models near that Domination marker at the end of the turn than less. The die roll to see who took the lead in this turn actually came up, and here it is. A 1 to 3 in favour of Joker this time, so even Bane's +1 to the die roll would not have done anything here, and so Joker is going to be going first. Let's see what's going to happen. Okay, raise the plan. We see who gets allocated audacity. I started separating these since it was getting so busy, the first two phases, just while it is so busy. It's going to be a big turn, I got the feeling. On the Joker side, they allocated an audacity marker to Gaggy over here, but elected not to give one to Killer Croc. Otherwise, they're all meaning that the rest of the three of them are being held back for Joker and his clowns to be used as they see fit. On the Soldiers of Fortune side, as you can see there, Bane's got one, the Infiltrate Operative's got one, Militia's got one, and the Militiaman at the back has one. Okay, now we'll start activating models and see if we can thin the herd down a little bit. Starting things off, Gaggy activated for the Joker's crew. He's using his mobility to a great extent in this game. He activated with Audacity, activating his pogo stick again to bounce all the way over from here. In front of the militia member. Remember, Gaggy is flagging somewhat. He's taken 5 of his 7 endurance worth of blood damage, so you know he can't stick around, and he is carrying that loot. So this probably is why the Joker crew really wanted him to go first. He moved over here, so, you know, sheltered from just about everything on the Soldiers of Fortune side. Remember, the elite operative here is out of ammo now, and he played a suspect marker, which he managed to turn into a stinky poisoned fish with the "it doesn't look fresh" card. There we go again, as before from earlier. If this suspect marker remains here until the end of the turn, then the Joker crew will score 2 points. If it's revealed before then, whoever does so takes a poison effect. Okay, on to Soldiers of Fortune. Well, Bane started off the Soldiers of Fortune turn in style. He, first of all, he was over here, remember, next to Killer Croc. Whilst over there, he applied a Venom dose to himself and also to Militia, because remember, he can do that at the beginning of at the beginning of the game. I said he'd taken the extra Venom doses and the ability to apply them to models nearby. So yes, they're both roided up this turn. He then moved around into contact with the Joker and attacked Joker. He, after all was said and done, all the efforts were made and the punches thrown, etc. Joker took an astounding 5 hits, which with the efforts he'd opted to put in as well, amounted to that much damage, 13 I think that is, and yes, that's way more than Joker's willpower of 8, so Joker is knocked out. That's the best way to make sure there's no other enemies nearby the domination mark, I suppose, is to make them all incapacitated. Finally, as part of the turn, I just remembered, he hadn't actually played an objective card from his hand, so Bane played Global Offensive, whereby have more friendly models with the veteran trait in play than there are enemy suspects. This took a little while to work out. All of the Bane crew are actual veterans on their cards, so and there's still 6 of them on the board, so there's 6 of them, and I counted 1, 2, 3, 4 Joker suspects, and the 5th as a stinky fish, which does count as a suspect, but that's still only 5. So yes, there are indeed more veterans on Bane's crew than there are Joker suspects. If only they hadn't been exploding them as teeth, etc., then that wouldn't have been such a problem. But yes, that does score Global Offensive for 3 points for Bane. What a turn. Right then, okay, that was interesting. The Thug 3 with the chainsaw activated for Joker's crew in Revenge, and yes, Revenge is an apt word, as you can see from the pile of markers. He charged into Bane with his 3 extra bonus attack counters. He efforted 3 times. Bane could only effort twice because he was already carrying some damage from earlier, and yes, there's his 2 stun markers up there to prove it, to cut down the dice coming his way. When all was said and done, that chainsaw does 3 blood damage per hit, and he was lucky. Bane was lucky only take 3 hits, but unfortunately that takes him up to 12 lost endurance, and he only has endurance 10, which means that Bane unfortunately, is completely incapacitated for the purposes of this game and effectively dead. Wow. Didn't see that coming, but then Joker has been winding this chainsaw guy up, so yeah, powerful combinations that. Bane was lucky not to take more damage, as I said. In response to this, the Joker crew played Seasoning the Mix from their hand, which is as simple as a model with the poison effect is removed as a casualty. Remember, Bane's carrying poison from way back at the beginning of the game. Hadn't actually damaged him, but it did make him susceptible to this card. So yes, that scores for the Joker crew. And yeah, whew. Well, I thought things would happen, but I wasn't expecting that. On to the Infiltrate operative, and she activated with Audacity. As you may recall, she had it. She first of all decided to stay put and open fire on the clown who'd just taken down Bane. Not too bad, not bad of her. Oh, what's that doing there? No. And yes, she opened fire, did 3 blood damage. He was already carrying 1 from the exploding teeth earlier. He is dead. So off he goes. Interesting. It's a very tit-for-tat turn, I think. She then used her special activation to hack the domination marker away from Killer Croc over here, and also the Joker suspect marker, which was just about there. She moved it around here, a bit further out of the way, just in case anyone wants to turn it into an excess of explosives or explode gas from it or something, just in case, just to prevent that sort of thing from happening again. Okay, right, over to the Soldiers of Fortune crew. And of course I forgot to mention that she could still move after all that, so as you can see I've just sidled her up a bit closer to Militia near to that domination marker as well. Back to the Joker crew, and Stan the Eyeball Man activated, as you can see over here. He was in contact with Cuchillo. He placed a suspect marker and then decided to move. He took one of the Audacity tokens that was left over, and in so doing he got Let Them In on the Joke, which he has the Trickster trait because he's in Joker's crew, and he placed a suspect marker within 4 inches of Cuchillo. Nice and simple. Back to Soldiers of Fortune. Back to Soldiers of Fortune with Militia activating. She did have Audacity, and she was still affected by the venom that Bane put on her before he died. She backed up a bit to pick up Bane's little Aceto teddy bear marker. I forgot to put that down on the board, but I knew it was there. She moved back to Stan the Eyeball Man, who's actually contesting this domination marker, so she wanted to do something about that. She, although under the influence of Venom, she was also enervated by 2 still from earlier in the game, so that sort of cut out her ability to do much in the way of efforting, and when all was said and done, she got 2 hits through on him, including the strength die, but that only amounted to 4 stun damage, and Stan can take 5. So he's still up and conscious and contesting, but yeah, he felt that alright. Whiteface activated. He strutted around the corner. Put down a suspect marker, as you can see just there, and in doing so, played once again Let Them In on the Joke, where all he had to do with his Trickster trait, which he has by being a henchman in a Joker crew, put down a suspect mark within 4 inches of the hapless Infiltrate op once again, scoring 2 points for the Joker crew. Nice and simple. Back to the Soldiers of Fortune, and Militia Man decided he was going to activate. He moved from over next to his Audacity counter, which I forgot to pick up from the board because I'm clever like that. He moved around here along the side of the crate, put down a suspect marker, and immediately played Black Ops for Soldiers of Fortune, whereby he just needed to be within 8 inches and out of line of sight of Killer Croc over here, which he just about is, just squeaked it in. And yes, that was enough to qualify to score this 2 victory points for Soldiers of Fortune. That's all he'll be doing. To Joker, and I'm not sure if you can make him out, but there's Killer Croc peeking around behind the massive apparatus of Joker's base. He activated. He didn't have Audacity. The last Audacity counter was actually pinched, I forgot to mention, by Whiteface when he laid down that suspect marker, but Killer Croc couldn't take it anyway, even if he wanted to, because he is a free agent as opposed to a henchman, and therefore doesn't benefit from the trickster trait that Joker would give his henchman. He moved into contact with the domination marker, so that he will definitely be scoring, counted against its numbers at the end of the turn. That concludes Killer Croc's go. Without much else to do, no ammo left in his gun, the elite operative moved from the top of the distribution house, just dropped down a few levels, landed in the skip, dusted himself off, and finished his turn here. And without an audacity marker to his name, the Ace of Spades clown decided he was going to move back towards the middle of the board as quickly as he could go, perhaps dreaming of using his Joker gas on that big number of models next turn. And finally, Cuchillo, he's a speedy boy, I told you before, and he managed to zip all the way from behind the crane to over here into the scrum between Eyeballman and Militia. He doesn't have audacity, so he couldn't do any attacks this turn, but it does put him very much back in the mixer for the next turn, the next final turn. Now, onto the final phase, cleanup, to see what's going on next. Right, cleanup just finished with. Let's see. In terms of scoring cards and whatnot, Let's Dance definitely scored for the Joker side. Their leader definitely took damage there. So, yep, he has now gained himself 2 points for his side. Well done, Joker, for being knocked out by Bane. It doesn't look fresh over by Gaggy. That fish is still there, so that's another 2 points for Joker. Swap that over for a normal suspect marker. This is the current trend. The domination marker in the middle, as you can see, right, there are 1, 2, 3 Soldiers of Fortune models and only 2 Joker crew models. So yeah, that does actually score for the Soldiers of Fortune. I'll pop that on their pile now. Nice. And that concludes that. In terms of poison, Cuchillo continued to suffer the slow damage effects. He's now on 3 blood markers altogether. He only has endurance 5, so it's actually made him go very close to death. Interestingly, the Militia man, I see him peeking around the corner there. He managed to fend off the effects of the Joker poison. So yeah, most crucially and interestingly of all, after the checking to see if Joker recovered from knocked out. Well, bit of a spoiler there, but you can see that he did not. He's failed his willpower roll, and he will remain knocked out for the remainder of the game. Okay, well, that's it. It's the end of the turn now. So let's move on to turn 4, see what happens in the last turn, who can score those last few victory points. I genuinely have lost count of who's winning. Right, entering the last turn of the game, and what a mess this one's become, I have to say. Take the lead phase occurred, only 1 card played from for the first phase, as you might be able to see there. The cheeky domination marker there, played from the Bane Crew's deck. And once again, played in contact with Whiteface this time at the end of the game, at the end of the turn, or the game, both the same. If there's more Soldiers of Fortune models around this marker than Joker ones, that's 3 points for Soldiers of Fortune. It's intriguing. I'm wondering what's going to happen there. No cards played for the Joker. The initiative roll to see who actually got the first activation this time came up 6-4 in favour of the Soldiers of Fortune. I was going to say in favour of Bane, but he's not there anymore, so I don't know if it really counts. Technically, Joker could be said to be present or not. But moving on to audacity tokens, let's see who's got them. On the Joker side, you can see one there for Killer Croc and one over here for Gaggy. The other 2 remaining ones are in the bank for use by clowns as seen fit. For the Soldiers of Fortune, you've got Infiltrator, Cuchillo, Militia, and around the corner, the Militia Man. Those are the 4 models with audacity being able to use all of their actions this round for Soldiers of Fortune. Okay, let's get on with the final turn, see who can score those last few cards. Militia acted first for the Soldiers of Fortune with audacity. As you can see, she made her way all the way over here. She's fast, and with her special action she could activate her super jump just to make sure she got in over here. Wants to contest that domination marker, obviously. Landing next to Whiteface, she attacked him, and she efforted 3 times. She's no longer suffering from enervating. She doesn't have Venom anymore, so these are all efforts that are made of her own volition, so to speak. Whiteface, only defense 2. He put 3 effort in just to try and cut down the number of attacks coming his way. Didn't, all for naught, as you can see from the vast array of stars indicating stun damage that he got from being repeatedly smacked headfirst into the shipping containers. He is knocked out, and yeah, that's him done for the game basically, because it's the last turn. And of course I forgot to mention the important part of that. when Militia knocked out Whiteface, she scored Search and Destroy for the Soldiers of Fortune. First time they've actually been able to score this one, as opposed to using it as a resource. Friendly model scores at least 2 hits during active action where it performed at least 2 efforts, and she did. Normally ties in with Venom, but when the Venom runs dry you can still just make those good old-fashioned normal efforts. And yes, she definitely hit him a lot. In doing so though, she did make him go unconscious, and your expendable emerged from the Joker crew's hand. It's only a 1-pointer, and it's basically a friendly model with a trickster trait. What Whiteface does, he's a henchman in a Joker crew, is removed as a casualty or becomes KO'd. So yep, that's a nice little 1 point back for the Joker crew. So it sort of means it's not such a big deficit for them. Okay, now I'm moving on. Stan the Eyeball Man came up next. He moved away from Cuchillo over there, over to contest the domination marker. He turned and fired at the mercenary, causing 3 hits overall, 3 points of damage. Cuchillo, as I said before, is actually very close to death due to the combined effects of poison. That was sufficient to take him off the board. Okay, no cards played from the hand this turn, but it was helping to contest that domination marker. Back to the Soldiers of Fortune, and the Infiltrator moved back from over here towards the centre. She hacked the domination marker into the middle of the board, and also this Joker suspect around the corner here. It was there, sorry, it's now just travelled around here just to get it away from the mix in case it starts exploding or emitting Joker gas or something, who knows. She then used she had audacity of course to do this. She then used her tactical action to open fire on Eyeball Man, and did 3 damage with her light assault gun, and after he took 2 damage earlier in the game from Cuchillo, who he just iced himself, that's enough to kill him. Off he comes. And yes, the tit-for-tat nature of this game continues on. In terms of scoring cards, she played from her hand Free-for-All, which doesn't tie into anything she just did, but it means that whoever's got the most models at the end of the game in the middle of the board scores 2 points, if it's the Soldiers of Fortune. Excuse me. Back to the Joker crew, and Killer Croc activated with audacity. It was very tempting to charge him into combat with one of the mercenaries, but frankly I just don't think there's any way that the Joker crew can really stop there being sufficient Soldiers of Fortune models around to prevent the domination marker scoring. So the Joker crew turned to their own hand of cards and saw what they could score from theirs. Killer Croc ran over to the Joker suspect that was over here, and he played Let Them Do Their Thing, which basically he turns it into a explosive set of teeth. It moves 2d6 in a direction of his choosing. He chose to go over here. It actually landed up just where the exploding teeth marker is I put down. It exploded in between both the Infiltrator and Militia, dealing 2 stun damage to each of them, but more importantly that meant because it did damage, it scores the card for 2 victory points. So I popped that on the top of their scored deck. And yes, so that was probably more that he could do than fruitlessly wading in trying to kill a model when he had no cards that would really capitalise on that. Scarecrow for Militia on temporary loan to the Soldiers of Fortune in Bane with Bane's crew. Moved around the corner with Audacity, and he placed. He just moved around the corner. Sorry, he may have Audacity, but he had nothing to use it on. He just wanted to get near to that domination marker. Unfortunately, he couldn't shoot at Ace of Spades Clown because of the night rules. He was just a little bit too far away, and there's nothing else he wants to do. He can't place a suspect marker because there's one right next to him already. But yes, he's really stamping the Soldiers of Fortune authority on the middle of the board and that domination marker, as well as the free-for-all that's already going on. On the Joker's side, Gaggy activated, he jumped around the corner, and with his Audacity he placed down another Stinky Fish marker with another one of the It Doesn't Look Fresh. Sorry, just reaching over to grab it. It doesn't look fresh cards. Same as each time he's played it, and again it scores. So there we are. It will score anyway. I don't think there's anything that the Soldiers of Fortune crew can do about that. Okay, right. He could have bounced into the middle of this ruck and just given everyone innovating and poison and stuff, but on the last turn there's very little point doing that. He would not have scored much for it, and he wouldn't have readjusted the numbers back in the Joker crew's favour. So he is carrying the loot and he could score points, so you've got to think about that sometimes. And after that last move and score by Gaggy, I think I'm not going to do any more moves. I've looked at both sets of hands, and neither side has any cards that they can score with their remaining Audacity-less models. Well, actually, no, Ace of Spades over there could use Audacity, but he has nothing he can score anyway, and so that concludes it. That means that for the end of the turn, both the domination on Bane's side and the free-for-all, also on Bane's side, will both score for the Soldiers of Fortune. Both sides have got a hefty stack of cards, so as I just counted up some for Bane, let's do their score first, shall I? So we're going in with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 13, 15, 18, 19, 20, 22, 25 scored. That's hefty, that is. Okay, so let's see what comes up for the Joker crew. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17, 19, 21, 23. Wow, that was incredibly close at the end. I didn't really expect it to be that close at all. So 25 to Bane and 23 to the Joker. So I think Bane keeps his hands on his supply of Venom derivatives or what have you, or at least he prevents Joker from putting it in his Joker gas or something. So yeah, I'm sure he wasn't really killed by that chainsaw. He's had worse, probably, maybe. But yes, I really enjoyed that game. An awful lot happened. It went from not much happening in the first turn to quite a lot, and it just escalated, and then people started dying, and yeah. And likewise with the scoring, there was very low scoring on the first turn, but as both crews got close to each other and close to the parts of the board they need to start influencing, that's when everything started avalanching. It's quite interesting how the different crews have got different decks that work and different ways of scoring their cards. And I don't just mean these two, I mean all of the crews that have had decks so far. I mean, I don't mind Night delaying releasing decks for existing gangs as long as they make sure the decks are themed and work well for them when they come out. I'd rather have the playtesting done than not, but I don't know. I have no idea of the workings of Night. Not many people do. So yeah. But yes, I hope you enjoyed that game. I certainly did, and yes, any feedback, I'd like to hear it in the comments below. I always do enjoy that. It's always positive, and any constructive feedback, even negative, is useful for me. Really, it is. Yes, so I look forward to seeing you next time. Where who knows where I'll be building, which part of Gotham I'll be building in next.